called him Zodiac, a name that became synonymous with fear, mystery, and the haunting shadow of evil. Between 1968 and 1969, a killer roamed the quiet streets of Northern California, turning love, laughter, and youth into tragedy. For decades, the world has obsessed over the coded letters, the cryptic symbols, and the chilling taunts. But this is not his story. This is the story of the people he stole from the world, the victims, their families, and the long, painful fight for justice that still continues today. In the beginning, it was just another cool winter night in Vallejo, California. The date was December 20th, 1968, just 5 days before Christmas. The Jensen family was busy wrapping gifts. 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen was a shy, bright girl with long brown hair and a smile that could light up a room. She had plans, dreams, and the simple excitement of a teenage girl in love. Her boyfriend, David Faraday, 17, was quiet, polite, and full of youthful curiosity. It was their first date, dinner, a school concert, then a drive under the stars. What happened next would become one of the darkest chapters in American true crime history. Betty Lou and David parked on a gravel turnout off Lake Herman Road, a peaceful, remote spot, the kind where young couples sought privacy. At around 11 p.m., another car pulled up beside them. No one knows exactly what was said or if there were any words at all. Within minutes, the serenity of the cold December night was shattered by gunfire. When police arrived, they found the teenagers' car doors open, windows shattered, and 2 lives cruelly extinguished. The news sent shockwaves through Vallejo. It was a small community, tight-knit, where everyone knew each other. Parents held their children closer. Rumors spread. Was it jealousy? A random act? A lover's quarrel? No one could imagine that this was just the beginning, the first act in a long, horrifying pattern. For the Jensens and Faradays, the holidays would never again bring joy. Their homes filled not with laughter, but with grief. Their lives, once anchored in the rhythms of family and faith, became a series of days measured by mourning and confusion. Betty Lou's mother described her daughter's absence as a hole in time, a silence that would never leave their house. The police worked tirelessly, but without leads. For 6 months, the case went cold, until the night of July 4th, 1969. Vallejo was alive with fireworks, music, and celebration. Among those enjoying the evening was 22-year-old Darlene Ferry, a vibrant, outgoing waitress, known for her kindness and infectious energy. She loved her daughter fiercely, and she was the kind of person who made everyone feel like a friend. That night, Darlene met up with 19-year-old Michael Mageau, a young man who adored her. They drove out to Blue Rock Springs Park, looking for a quiet spot to talk. But once again, the peace of the California night was broken. A car pulled up behind them. The driver stepped out. A man with a flashlight and a gun. Without warning, he opened fire. Bullets tore through the car, striking both Darlene and Michael. Darlene was mortally wounded. Michael survived, barely, and it was through his testimony that the legend of the Zodiac killer began. Less than an hour after the attack, the Vallejo Police Department received a chilling phone call. The voice on the other end was calm, almost polite. "I want to report a double murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year." The voice hung in the air like smoke. The man who called was no ordinary killer. He was announcing himself to the world. Soon, letters began arriving at local newspapers. Each letter was signed with a peculiar symbol, a circle with a cross through it, the Zodiac's mark. In his letters, he demanded that the newspapers publish his ciphers, codes he claimed would reveal his identity. If they didn't, he warned, he would kill again. The press obeyed. Fear spread like wildfire. The Zodiac's letters weren't just confessions. They were taunts, games, invitations to madness. Yet behind every word, every symbol, were the families still grieving. People who didn't care about puzzles or headlines, only about the lives that had been taken. In the months that followed, the Zodiac struck again. On September 27, 1969, college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking near Lake Berryessa. It was a perfect California afternoon. Warm, golden, peaceful. Out of nowhere, a man appeared dressed in a strange hooded costume with a Zodiac symbol emblazoned on his chest. He carried a gun and a knife. He tied the young couple's hands behind their backs, calmly explaining that he intended to rob them, but then, with cold precision, he began stabbing them. Brian survived. Cecilia did not. Before leaving the scene, the killer drew his symbol on Brian's car and wrote the date and weapon he had used. It was as if he wanted to be remembered, as if infamy was his reward. For the families, the attacks were not random crimes, they were lifelong sentences. Brian Hartnell, though he lived, carried scars both physical and emotional. Cecilia's family was left shattered, robbed of a young woman whose future had barely begun. And all the while, the killer was still out there. Then, on October 11th, 1969, came another strike, this time in San Francisco itself. Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver, picked up a fare in the city's theater district. His passenger asked to be taken to Presidio Heights, one of San Francisco's quietest neighborhoods. When the taxi stopped, the passenger pulled a gun and shot Paul once in the head. He calmly wiped the cab, tore a piece of Paul's shirt, and disappeared into the night. It was brazen. It was calculated. And it was terrifying. The killer had struck in a populated area, right under the noses of witnesses. And police arrived within minutes, yet somehow, he vanished. Later, the Zodiac sent another letter, mocking law enforcement, enclosing a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt as proof. The families of the victims could only watch in horror as the killer turned their grief into theater. Behind the scenes, the investigations grew desperate. Dozens of police departments were involved, yet they often failed to share information effectively. The lack of coordination gave the Zodiac an edge. His letters became longer, stranger, a mix of threats, philosophy, and narcissism. He bragged about killing dozens, though only 5 murders were ever confirmed. For the families, those letters were a form of torture. Each one reopened old wounds, reminding them that justice remained just out of reach. Betty Lou Jensen's parents clung to hope that science would someday reveal the truth. Darlene Ferrin's mother refused to move from her home, convinced the killer still watched them. Cecilia Shepard's father attended every public meeting on the case, demanding accountability, refusing to let her name fade from memory. The Zodiac case became a mirror reflecting the failings of the system itself, the disconnection between law enforcement agencies, the obsession of the public with the killer's persona rather than the victim's humanity, and the limits of 1960s forensic technology. There were no DNA databases, no digital records, and fingerprints were unreliable. Each lead seemed to end in disappointment. The killer's cryptic ciphers, some of which remained unsolved for over 50 years, became a macabre fascination. In 2020, a group of private code breakers finally solved the infamous 340-character cipher. It didn't reveal the killer's name, but it confirmed his arrogance. "I hope you're having lots of fun in trying to catch me," he wrote. "I'm not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." Even in death, he imagined himself victorious. But for the families, it was never about him. It was about closure. Over the decades, the Zodiac case inspired movies, books, documentaries, countless retellings that focused on the killer's brilliance, his mystery, his myth. Yet what got lost was the human cost. Every reenactment, every theory, every online debate had a shadow. The mothers who never stopped grieving, the siblings who grew up with empty chairs at dinner tables, the survivors who lived with the guilt of being alive. Michael Mageau, who survived the attack with Darlene Ferrin, spent years struggling to rebuild his life. He avoided interviews, haunted by nightmares and survivors' guilt. In one rare conversation, he said quietly, "I remember her smile, the way she laughed. That's what I see, not the gun." The pain of the Zodiac's victims' families echoes across generations. For them, justice isn't a matter of fame or closure. It's about dignity. It's about remembrance. It's about the belief that every life deserves to be honored, not overshadowed by the darkness that took it. In the 1970s and 1980s, the Zodiac case began to fade from headlines, but not from memory. New suspects emerged, theories multiplied, and each new revelation reignited old wounds. Families often found themselves caught between hope and despair, between wanting answers and fearing the truth. In recent years, the rise of forensic genealogy, the same technology that identified the Golden State Killer, has rekindled hope. Investigators now have tools they could only dream of half a century ago. DNA extracted from Zodiac letters, fingerprint re-examinations, and advanced AI text analysis offer a new frontier for justice. Yet, with every development comes renewed anxiety for the families. For them, every lead is another emotional gamble, the chance of closure or another heartbreak. But beyond the case files and technology lies a deeper legacy, the lessons society learned and didn't learn from the Zodiac era. The case exposed cracks in law enforcement cooperation, underscored how media sensationalism can overshadow humanity, and showed how minority victims in similar cases often received less attention. The Zodiac investigation became a cautionary tale, a story about how justice can falter when the narrative focuses on the monster instead of the mourning. Across the world, from the UK to Canada, Germany to Australia, families of unsolved crimes find echoes of the Zodiac case in their own tragedies. The need for closure, the fight against forgotten cases, the cry for reform, these are universal. Social justice movements have amplified those voices, calling for equal treatment, transparency, and compassion for all victims, regardless of background. The Zodiac killer may have written his final letter decades ago, but his shadow lingers in every cold case office, every unsolved file, every mother who still waits for a phone call that may never come. And so the story continues, not as a mystery to be solved, but as a promise to remember. We tell these stories not to glorify the killer, but to honor those he tried to erase, to give voice to Betty Lou and David, to Darlene and Cecilia, to Paul and countless others whose names deserve to be spoken. We tell them to remind the world that behind every true crime headline lies a family, a community, a wound that time alone cannot heal. And to you, watching, you are part of that remembrance. When you comment, when you share, when you bring awareness to unsolved cases, you keep their memories alive. If you found this story meaningful, please share it. Leave a comment with your thoughts, or tell us which underreported cases you'd like us to cover next. Every story deserves to be told. Every victim deserves justice. Like, share, and subscribe, because remembering is an act of justice. And together, we refuse to forget,